Hello, hello, hello. Happy Monday, y'all, and welcome to our final episode of 2022. Can y'all believe 2022 is getting ready to be over? Those of you that will join me live, welcome to FPP Live, a time we connect all things faith with purpose and profit. And yes, you need all three if you're going to live as the highest and best version of who God created you to be. Hey, Alzada. So she knows what to do. So as you come in, say hello, tell me where you're from. If, as I share with you, you have questions, thoughts, comments, I want to hear them. Because listen, even if I don't get to comment and respond to all of your comments live, I do come back and look at every single one. And by the way, your insights, your questions, your thoughts really does fuel what's next within what I teach. Because I definitely pray over it, look at it, and allow God to use me through it. So, with that said, we are in a second part of a conversation we started last week. And that conversation was called How to Strategically Take Your Business to the Next Level in 2023. Take your business, your purpose, all the things God has created you to do and be. And so, we started that series with the conversation that was called Will Your Purpose Pass the Test? Will it? Will your purpose pass the test? So that in addition to, I gave you a bonus training. So let me say out of the gate, if you did not get the bonus, I dropped it in our Facebook group. So if you're not a member of my Brilliance Tribe Facebook group, this is my invitation to you for you to join. I'm saying that out of the gate. I gave you a bonus training, which gave you the steps to strategically go after your next level. And in this two-part series, I'm talking about all the things around it that people usually don't talk about. Okay. So where that bonus training again is in the Brilliance Tribe, which is thebrilliancetribe.com. Again, thebrilliancetribe.com. By the way, those of you that are not a member of my Facebook group, you've got to answer questions. And I do use the answers to your questions to know what you need. Because I don't come on these sessions for me. I'm here for you. And how do I know what you need and how best I can serve you? And really even to pray about it and go to God about it if you don't tell me what you need. So you do that in thebrilliancetribe.com. All right. So, in our series last week, we talked a lot about test and all the things you got to know about being tested. And my goal ultimately is that you pass your test. But here's what I want you to get as we talk about our conversation today, the year to be about your Father's business, because 2023 is that year. I want you to understand that just like a diamond has to go through a fire first, what people forget is that a diamond starts as a lump of coal. If it's ever going to shine, like a diamond is supposed to. And you know, the diamond that shines the brightest is the most valuable. Have you realized that? They talk about clarity of cut and all of that. That's all about how it shines in the light. So how you shine is to burn that coal off of the diamond. It has to go through a process. And just like a piece of diamond or a piece of diamond, a piece of coal has to go through a process to become a diamond, so do you have to go through a process. Not for who you already are, because that part of you is done. So anytime I'm here with you, I'm coming for the next piece of you that has not yet been crafted, that has not yet been burned off, that has not yet gone fully through the process so that you can shine. I need you to understand it's when you shine that people can see you as their need, and then they come to you looking for you to be their answer. If they can't find you, they don't know you exist, and how are you going to be their answer? That is why this series is so important, okay? So if you missed part one, go to FPP Podcast. Go to FPP Podcast. Again, part one was Will Your Purpose Pass the Test? FPPpodcast.com is where you go if you missed that last week. All right, so let's dig into our conversation for this week because listen, this 2023, which is in 2 weeks, is a year that I'm proclaiming, not just for you, but for me, that we're going to be about our Father's business. And some of you guys are saying, Nicole, you're already about your Father God's business. But listen, God's always looking to uplevel me as well. I'm in the journey just like you. And when I'm done and there's no need to uplevel me, then I would have already had my funeral. We would have already celebrated my life. So you've got to know, as long as you're here on this planet, God has more work for you to do. And there's more you to groom and grow into. So this title came from Luke 2:49 that Jesus says to his mother, didn't you know that I must be about my Father's business? Now he says this to his mother. They travel to Jerusalem. I want to say it right. And when his parents leave, Jesus stays. in the temple, talking to all the teachers in the temple. And his mother looks up and goes, "Wait a minute, where is Jesus?" And they can't find him. They have no idea where he is. And I want you to think about this. If your mom or your great auntie like me, and you have a child that you're watching that's under your jurisdiction and you can't find them, don't you like lose your mind? And so imagine what Mary must have been like, frantic, a little mad at Jesus. She probably tried to snatch him like, boy, because I know that's what I would do if my child, my grandchild, my step bonus children when they were little went missing and then all of a sudden I found them. Have you lost your mind? And so what he says back to her, he says, "Woman," no, he probably doesn't say woman. This is me saying that. "Didn't you know that I'd be about my father's business?" And so my question to you is, are you about your father's business? So I'm going to walk you through the three P's to make sure that you are in alignment with your assignment. And yes, you are assigned. If you weren't assigned, you wouldn't have been born. See, God gave each of us an assignment. Those of you that come week after week, I talk about this all the time. So I really want to make sure that you are in the proper position of it so that 2023 can be abundantly above all you could ever ask or think. You hear me say that all the time. I got a remix on that. I'm gonna share with you in a second. So listen, here's the first P. Ready? Now, wait, let me just say this before I say that. I'm going to walk you through three P's. In part one here, I'm going to walk you through the first P because the first P is the most important before you can get to the second and the third. I'll do the second and the third in part two. Those of you that are new to my lives, I'll tell you where you get part two. Okay. So here, I want you to hear this. Okay. So first, you've got to prepare to be about your father's business. Just because you're born, listen, God has a plan for you already at birth. But if you're going to actually do the thing God has planned for you to do, you've got to prepare for it. That's another P, plan. God has a plan for you, but you've got to prepare. This is why God puts you through a process, a test to develop you. I like last week, one of the people that joined us live said, "Oh, I don't believe God tests you." But listen, God has to allow it. And what I know for sure is if God is going to allow it, there is a purpose behind everything God allows to happen. See, there's another version of you that has to come forward. So he's got to get some more of that coal off of you. So to do that, you've got to prepare. Okay. So I'm gonna walk you through two major things you've got to do to prepare. Okay. Now, here's the thing that's interesting. If God knows the plans that he has for you, as I was writing this out, what kept ringing in my mind is one of my favorite scenes in a movie. Now, if you've been with me for a few years, I use this every now and then because it is one of my favorite scenes. So this, I'm going to play it in a second. It's like quick 8 seconds, but this is taken from Tyler Perry's movie, and the movie was Medea's Family Reunion. And those of you that have seen that movie, you know this scene well. It's Cicely Tyson, who is the matriarch, the oldest living relative in the family, pulls everyone together because she sees all the young folks gyrating and playing dice. And she's like, what are they doing? And so she's claiming for them to take their place, just like God is waiting for you to take yours. So I'm going to play this real quick and I'll come back and we'll talk about what this means for you.
Take your place. Now, starting now, starting now.
Every time you think about what I'm getting ready to tell you, I want you to think about Cicely Tyson yelling at you, saying to you,
your place. Now, starting now, starting now.
Not yesterday, not 2 years. Well, I shouldn't say yesterday, not tomorrow, not in 2025, not in 2030. I'm talking about right now. We're in the dawn of a new year. For many of you, you've been settling for where you are. We talked about Moses in part one of this series. So let me bring Moses into play here. God already knew how God was going to use Moses. And I talked about this in more detail in last episode, so I'm only going to talk about it briefly here. That when Moses was adopted by Pharaoh's daughter, he was raised in the palace. He didn't know he didn't know he was an Israelite. He was raised as an Egyptian. So that was part of God's plan too, because God knew that he'd be able to have conversations. He'd know how to go up to Pharaoh to have a conversation with him, unlike anybody else would know. But the thing that's so interesting is when Moses decided to quit it all before he had his burning bush moment, he ran out into the wilderness. Again, I went into the story in much more detail in last week. I'm not going to go into it, but this is what I want you to get. He thought he was going to have a simple life. He was going to live out in the bush, not worry about anybody else, and he was going to stay out there forever. But God had another plan. I love there's a quote that says, man makes plans and God laughs because we don't even know what God is up to. First Corinthians 2:9. Now, you guys always hear me say Ephesians 3:20, which is he does abundantly above all that you could ever ask or think. Now, here's a spin on it. First Corinthians 2:9. Eye has not seen, nor ear heard, nor have entered into the heart of man the things which God has prepared for those who love him. Now, here's the thing that's so deep. Now, listen, I looked this up. You guys know I love me some Tony Evans Bible commentary. Sometimes I look in here, sometimes I look in my concordance, I look in a whole bunch of different places. Here's what it says, and I'm not reading all of it because it's long. Quoting from the prophet Isaiah, Paul explains, and let's talk about what Paul's talking about in this verse, okay? Quoting from the prophet Isaiah, Paul explains that for those who love God, he is able to make known things that no eye has seen, nor ear has heard, and no human heart has conceived. Think about what that means, y'all. You know, many times when we are making plans, we're making plans based on what we know and what we can see. When God has a something so much bigger than you can even fathom prepared for you, anything that you think to do is not going to be enough. So Moses thought, okay, I am going to flee because he had just killed an Egyptian. You guys, if again, I told the whole story last week, and he thought, okay, I'm just going to flee and live out in the wilderness. But God knew that he'd end up in the wilderness, and God knew that burning bush moment would come. So I need you to understand everything you go through, God uses it. All things work together for the good, not some things. The question is, will you allow God to use it for your good? And will you allow yourself to sit so God can reveal it to you? That's what that burning bush moment was. And we all have our own burning bush moment with God. Now, it's not going to be the same. You're not going to see a bush burning. So don't say, Nicole, tell me I'm supposed to see a bush that burns. That's not what I mean. But what I mean is, you need two things. If you're going to, whether it's to have a business or a career, listen, all of us are not meant to be entrepreneurs, but each one of us are meant to serve the kingdom in our own special way. And so if you're going to do the thing God has called you to do, called, created, crafted you to do, you've got to have two things. You need methodology and revelation. Revelation is only God given. Okay. The same underneath this same verse, it says, it indicates that God can help believers understand things that they cannot learn through natural means. Y'all get that? Let me say that one more time because maybe some of y'all didn't hear me. It indicates, talking about this Bible verse, that God can help believers understand things that they cannot learn through natural means. How does he do this? He reveals things to us by the Spirit. Go read verse 2:10, 1 Corinthians 2:10. Not going to read that now, but I want you to get this. That's what revelation is. So you got to spend time with God. You got to let God, you got to talk to God and grow a relationship with him. That's how you begin to get the revelation. When I years ago was feeling like something was missing and I had the career many people dream of, I worked on some hot Hollywood shows. I was going to every hot Hollywood party. Celebrities knew my name, knew me on first name basis. Well, we didn't have cell phones back then, but look, could page me, have my home number. I had their home number too. Not in a dating kind of way, in a we work together kind of way. I need y'all to get this. So I was, kind of high on the hog, as my people would say in Houston, in Galveston. But I need you to understand that God has so much more for me. That is why I started feeling like something was missing. If I didn't sit in quiet contemplation, I would have never gotten to the place that I am now. If I would have listened to what the world said, because this thing that I do, there was no such thing. Sorry, my calendars reminding me to do things. There's no such thing. There was no such thing as coaching back then. The only way that I could be clear is to let God speak to my soul. And many of you, the missing piece is that you don't spend time with God. How do you grow a relationship so God can speak to you if you don't spend time with him? So my challenge to you over the holiday season is to spend a little time. As I was writing this out, what kept coming to my mind is a song we used to sing when I was little, and many of you guys may know this song in church from church. Have a little talk with Jesus. Tell him all about your problems. I can't sing. He'll hear your faintest cry and answer by and by. But listen, God doesn't just want you to come only when you have problems. It's like me being married and I only go and talk to my husband when I have problems. It doesn't work like that. So you've got to understand, if you're going to take your place, you've got to know your place. How do you know your place? It's spending time with God. He'll show you who you be. So it's almost like, when you buy a ticket to go to a Broadway play or any play for that matter, you walk in the theater and they say, oh, the usher will show you where your seat is. Now, first of all, you have to have your ticket that has the seat number on it for them to show you where to go. So you've got to understand what your place is. And God will begin to show you the exact place to go and do the thing He's crafted and called you to do. The reason why you need an usher is because that's the methodology. Okay, walk down this aisle and then turn left. Your seat is at the end. How do you know that if you've never been in this theater before? How do you know to go after the next thing if you've never done the thing that God is calling you to do? So, for those of you that know you need help with your methodology, this is what I'm going to ask you to do. I want you to share your purpose questions with me. All you've got to do is go to sharewithnicole.com and tell me where your challenges are, what questions you have around your purpose. It'll take you 2 minutes to share with me. And what I'm doing is God has dropped in my spirit that many of you, that's the place you're stuck in. So look, let me put this up here real quick. Zeta says, I'm struggling to get quiet. I get up during prayer watch. It's the quieting of the mind that's the problem. I am concerned because this is a critical time for me. So here's what happens, y'all. I'm going to give you one strategy. And by the way, God has already put in my spirit to a bunch of things He wants me to do for you in January. But I need you to answer questions because there are areas that I also want to make sure that as I give you this methodology, I'm going to give you, that I'm clear the direction you need for me to take. Does that make sense, y'all? So I can say it from where you are. So God has given me the revelation, but I want to speak to it from the exact place you're in. Making sense? You following me? So with that said, I'm going to gift you with something that's going to bless you. But here's my quick answer to you, Alzada. Listen, your mind is never going to get all the way quiet. I cannot meditate, okay? Because I got 20 million things going on in my mind. So instead of me fighting it, I stop, I write it down on something so I can just let it release it in that moment and come back to it later. And then I just stay in that space. Sometimes I'm gonna have my Jesus time. God gives me ideas to things to do. I get up. Sometimes God said, get up and do it now. So you might think, oh, I need this really long time. And maybe you don't need the really long time. If what's happening is God is pouring stuff into you, that's the whole point. Go do it. But if your mind is moving, then have a piece of paper there, or I usually have my cell phone there opened up in my note section so I can write the note down and then I can stay back focused. Okay. So that's going to always be a battle because we have listen, we're busy, y'all. So you're never going to quiet your mind all the way down. Well, let me not say you never. I haven't perfected that yet. But what I have found helps me is if I write it down, get it out of my head for that moment so that I can go on and keep doing the thing that I've been doing with my Jesus time. Okay. Hopefully that helps y'all, Zeta. All right. And then for some of you, the reason it's so hard is because you don't have the methodology. So you don't even know what to pray for. And so you're praying and praying and praying and nothing is coming. And God is waiting for you to take some action because prayer without works is dead. So if you keep praying and you're doing the same stuff you've been doing, the reason it's not working is because you need something new. Behold, I will do something new. Will you not know it? Google that, y'all. That's a Bible verse. So I need you to get, God is trying to do something new, but the old is not working. Okay. So good question, Alzada. So with that said, let me see, where was I? Oh, this is what I was telling you. So you need both. You need methodology and you need revelation. So revelation is sitting with God. I'm gonna give you a gift around that in January. But in the meantime, I'm gonna bless you also with methodology. So I'm creating something for you in January. But in order for me to effectively teach you, I need to know where you're struggling. So write that. Go to sharewithnicole.com. You'll see it's a quick survey. I ask you 2 questions. And just share with me where you're having challenges or where you have this big desire around your purpose, and anywhere in between, share it so I can bless you, so I can be committed to growing it between now and the time I get to share with you the methodology that you need. Okay. So With that said, let's continue on in this conversation. So listen, it goes on to talk about 1 Corinthians 2:11. It says, "For what man knows the things of a man except the spirit of the man?" Hear me. For what man knows the things of a man except the spirit of the man? That's the Holy Spirit, y'all. Even so, no one knows the things of God except the Spirit of God. So you realize that there's a power that works inside of you, and it's a spirit. It's called the Holy Spirit. So when you spend time with God, the Holy Spirit can start to reveal things to you. Okay, so let me break it down to you in the study Bible. So here's what it says about this Bible verse: No one knows my thoughts better than I do. No one knows your thoughts better than you. In the same way, then, no one knows the thoughts of God except the Spirit. Therefore, we are dependent on the Spirit to enable us to make a spiritual connection with God. When this happens, God illuminates His word so that it becomes relevant to specific circumstances. There's times that I'll be praying and a word, like even when I'm here with you guys live, I'll be talking to you. And mind you, I have outline. Listen, I'm not reading a script. This is outline, right? So I'll have an outline. I have Bible verses I'm going to read, and then a Bible verse will just pop in my mind. Now, when that happens, when I'm live with you, I know the most of the Bible verses that I'm saying to you. But when that happens, when I have my Jesus time, what I know is God is leading me to that Bible verse. So I'll go look it up. Even dare I say, I'll be writing these notes out for you guys, and a Bible verse will pop up. Like this happened with two Bible verses. Actually, the Bible verse I just read, 1 Corinthians 2:9, popped in my head the other day when I was thinking about this to share with you. I was driving in the car, I had to do a voice memo so I wouldn't forget. I'm telling you the truth. God will pop stuff in my spirit randomly because I tried my hardest. So Alzada, know that God sees your desire. Don't quit. Again, what you think you need and what you need could be two totally different things because your flesh doesn't always understand the revelation. Trust that whatever's meant to be revealed, if you can't spend the time because you're being distracted, at least you were trying. And by the way, another great way to, when I'm feeling distracted, is I put on music and just let myself sit and praise and worship music and allow that to speak to my soul. And if I can't get focused for that day, I release it. I don't fight it. God knows your heart. And then randomly, when I do that throughout the day, I get just drops. And so tomorrow, some of the part two that I'm going in, a lot of the verses were things God just dropped in my spirit randomly. Like I just told you, the one I just read to you was randomly dropped in my spirit, right? So you've got to really understand that God will give you direction, but you've got to listen and you got to take heed. And I talk to you guys all the time about doing things afraid. I think many people wait for things to be comfortable. It's not going to be comfortable because you're trying to be comfortable in your flesh. And if you're doing something your flesh has never done before, it's going to be uncomfortable. Hello, Moses, who told God, how can I go do this when I can't speak? Hello, Jeremiah, who also said, I can't because I can't speak because I'm too young. God knows who you are. How dare you tell him who you are? He sees you. He made you. He knows who you are. And as my auntie would say, don't limit God's ability to bless you, right? So second thing you got to do, so let me go back because I kind of went off on a tangent. So I'm giving you 2 steps to prepare, right? So you can take your place. Number one, you got to know your place. And then a second thing, which is a prerequisite, is you've got to be obedient in that place. Now listen, the word obedience means to follow the commands or guidance of, to conform to or comply with. Now, listen, Romans 12:1. I hear sometimes the Bible verse jumps in my spirit. Romans 12:1 talks about 12:2, but about renewing your mind. I can't remember the Bible verse, right? That you will do the acceptable will of God. It says, do not conform to this world. Thank you, Lord, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. See, here we go. It's happening, y'all. 12:2, Romans 12:2. So if you're going to conform to the world, then you'll be who you already are. Because the world will tell you how you're supposed to be. And the things you've done in the past to get where you are has 9 times out of 10, not always. Some of it has been the way the world told you. So even if I look at my entertainment job, the world said get an internship, did that. The world said you got to spend time working and doing some different things. So I had been floor director, I had been a production assistant, I had been lighting manager, I had done a whole number of things. I had been casting, I'd worked in costume. Listen, had so many jobs in the entertainment industry. But the world tells you You've got to go through the ranks. But listen, if God wants to take you and move you from bottom of the barrel to the top of the pile, it'll happen overnight. Look at Esther. So you've got to trust God and transform. Even for me, when God told me to do this work, I had to stop looking at what I knew because I didn't know what the heck this was. I keep saying it over and over, but I need y'all to get this. Okay. So obedience, there's a saying, this might be a Bible verse, obedience is better than sacrifice. See, what happens is when you're being obedient, you're complying to what God said about you. How do you get to know that? It's spending time with God. You can't take a place if you don't know your place. How do you know your place if you don't even know the maker of the place that put you in it? There's a position that your purpose is meant to play in. Do you know it? First of all, do you know your purpose? Let alone do you know the position of it? And then you got to be obedient to it no matter what. hmm So I need you to get this. Moses was told no over and over and over again by Pharaoh. Yet he didn't give up because he was being obedient to what God told him to do. So I want you to think about, like David, what happens when you take down the Goliath you were created to take down? Who gets blessed by that? Think about like Noah. What if you're a bridge? Because maybe you're not meant to be an ark, but maybe you're meant to be a bridge for people, whether it's to help them in their career or their business or their family or their life. Think about the transformation that occurs in the people you were blessed and created to serve because you're obedient to your calling. Think about like Esther, who stood in the gap for her people. Who are you meant to stand in the gap for? Or like Moses, who was able to free his people. Now, listen, we're not dealing with slavery these days, right? But who's waiting for you to help them come forth, break through, overcome, let go, whatever that is? Imagine all those people when you're obedient to your calling. They get blessed because you do what you do. There are people assigned to you. You are their answer. They're praying and looking for you. And every day you hold it up and you make excuses as to why you can't do it. Like when Moses started saying, well, I killed somebody. God knew that before the burning bush. Oh, well, God, I stutter. God knows you stutter. Listen, I used to be deathly, and I still am. I'm really shy. So for me to walk up to people by myself, y'all, it is like, whoo, I'm shaking in my boots to this day. You guys can't tell because I've had to work through a lot of my anxiety around it because God called me to speak. First time I spoke in front of a crowd, I was shaking so hard I knew that 18,000 member church that I was speaking in, that I happen to be a member of, that choir behind me thought I was dancing because, baby, I was shaking so hard. I couldn't even hold my paper. And for me to be a speaker now, it still blows me away. But it's because I didn't give up. I didn't let fear stop me. I hired a speaking coach to help me with my nervousness. I need you to understand that's methodology, but revelation only God can give. So my question to you is, where are you stuck? Do you need do you need more revelation, or are you stuck because you don't even know methodology? Let me tell you what I mean by methodology. I'm talking strategy. It's one thing to know that you're meant to do this thing, but do you know how to get there? Do you know the steps to take to create a business around it? That's the exact reason, again, I want you to share with me so I can help you. Sharewithnicole.com. And listen, if one of those two questions out of there are not a question that you would ask, fill it in and write your own answer and tell me what that answer is, what the question is to that answer. All right. So listen, I have so much more to pour into you. This is only part one. Those of you that come week after week, you know that I do part two tomorrow morning. FPP breakfast at 8:30 a.m. EST, fppbreakfast.com. But before I go into that, let me say this to you. This week is our last week. We will be on hiatus after this week until February 6th. Let me tell you why. Because one, God has told me that he wants me to pour into you around purpose, about you pursuing your purpose in January. So I'm going to be focused on studying and growing for that. But the second reason is because I'm coming back with a new format. And so that new format, we will be live on February 6th, and I'll tell you all about it. And whole new format for 2023. hmm So I need you to get clear on where you are and what you need. I need you to get clear on what's next for you. If you're going to go and be about your father's business for 2023, you've got to prepare for it. You've got to prepare for it. The question is, will you do what it takes? Or will you take the easy road and not do the work? Listen, I want you to be blessed beyond what you can even imagine next year. I'm holding space for you for that. If you're ready and you know it's your time, I look forward to serving you. Make sure you go. Last time I put this up and share with Nicole.com and fill out that survey. Listen, if you've been talking to one of your girlfriends, one of your boyfriends, one of your peeps about it, and you know that they needed to say, hey, you need to go fill out this survey. Okay. Last thing I want to make sure you get is I dropped a training that goes with this part one, part two in our Facebook group. So I want to make sure you go to thebrilliancetribe.com and join the Facebook group so you can get that training. All right. So with that said, this is our last live until 2023. I'll see many of you tomorrow morning for part two, and many of you will listen to the replay of the podcast on Friday. But until I get to see you in 2023, here's wishing you a phenomenal holiday season. So I got on my red tonight. Can you tell? Here's hoping that you get to spend some time with your friends, your family, loved ones, that you get to eat some good food. And here's what else I know. While I am down for hiatus, I always sit in quiet contemplation. I allow God to literally speak to me about what you need. He's already started to do that, by the way. I haven't even started praying yet, and God has started showing it to me, which is why I'm doing this survey. But I spend time in prayer and preparation and then just to pause so that I can restore myself to pour more into you. So, with that said, it's always my honor and pleasure to serve you. If you've gotten any value out of this first part of the conversation, can I ask you to do me two favors? One, share it. Click below, share it, not because I'm trying to grow my following, but I know so many more people need this insight. And I can only be as helpful as people that know I exist. And so you help me with my purpose when you do that. And then, second, is share the one thing you got out of this conversation, out of part one. All right. And again, I look forward to seeing many of you tomorrow morning. All you've got to do, if you're not on Clubhouse, by the way, fppbreakfast.com also gives you an invite to join Clubhouse. Okay. So again, it's been my honor this year to serve you. I look forward to the new way I get to serve you in 2023. And I look forward to hearing your voice, many of you tomorrow morning on Clubhouse. All right. So with that, thank you again. I'll talk to you soon. Bye, y'all.